I'm Bae.
And I'm Morgan, and we are the Body Acceptance Babes.
This is the podcast where we talk about how to accept the body you have, let go of societal expectations to change the way you look, and to just be who you were born to be from the inside out.
You'll hear about how we embrace body neutrality, reject diet culture, and learn how you can too. Now on with the show.
Hey, Morgan.
Hey, Bae. How's it going?
You know, living life.
Living life.
The struggle is real.
Living the dream.
Yep. How's it going with you?
It's going all right. Yeah, we just had Thanksgiving where I was, so
yeah. How was that?
It was all right. But I think do you want to share one of your stories first?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling like myself, so like the body acceptance journey struggle is real. I've been in a bad place. Normally when I have like struggles with the diet voice or negative self-talk, which is our topic today, normally that is a moment or a thought. And normally for me, because I've been going through this acceptance journey and I feel so much more confident, normally when those thoughts come, I get wrapped up in them for a moment and then I laugh at them and I move on. Yeah. But this time it's been like 4 days of kind of not beating myself up, but it feels like I'm being raked over the coals with these thoughts. And the longer it goes on, the harder it is to resist entertaining the diet behavior. And I find myself thinking about it all day, and it's put me in this like real negative headspace, and I can't even find something fun to wear, or like it's really hard to pull myself out of it.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
It's just and I'm so proud that it's been like 4 days and I'm still not engaging in that behavior. So win.
That's a huge, no, I think I don't want to gloss over that because that's a huge accomplishment. And I think that deserves recognition. Absolutely. Because that can be really hard, especially when you're in the thick of it, for sure.
Yeah. So I'm really proud that I haven't engaged in that behavior.
I'm proud of you.
And thank you. And I feel like I maybe turned a corner last night, so I'm really hoping that the worst is over. But how I'm dealing with it is literally just resisting these behaviors.
Sometimes that is how what you have to do, right?
Yeah. And just trying to do things that bring me joy to try and pull myself back into alignment, I guess.
That's a good point. Yeah, and so I was actually going to ask, like, are you doing anything to try to help in that I think is great that you've mentioned that, that you're trying to do things, that make you happy just in general, right? So
yeah, I feel like little things like putting on an outfit I love, or like putting on my favorite bra, like little things like that.
Yeah.
My favorite bra is a bralette, so like
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. No, I get that. It can be hard sometimes, right? Like it can be really hard, going through the struggles, and I think it's great that you shared it with our listeners because I 100% know that it's going to be relatable, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, like, I've been there too, but like, I think other listeners, especially if you're in the beginning of your journey too. And well, actually, this is a good point. This shows that it's not just like a linear journey that goes like from the beginning to an end. It goes up, and the line is like the squiggly up and down, like does some turns around, does some like, you know what I mean? It's not a It's not a straight road forward, I guess.
It's true.
It can sometimes feel like it's 2 steps forward and 3 steps back sometimes. But yeah, so
it's definitely still worth it.
Yeah. I think that's what I think it comes down to. Like, it's okay to hear the diet voice, I think, because that's normal. But what I think is important is what you're doing is not like you're hearing it, but you're not listening to it. You're not doing what it's saying, telling you to do. Yeah. Right? So, and it's really hard to hear it all the time, probably. Yeah. Like, so... But it's, I would imagine, like, you know, I've been there, but it's like, yeah, it's like, just keep resisting it and keep doing what you know to be true in your heart. And that's, you know, that's all you can really do. And I do think that, like all phases in life and in, like, it will, you know, you'll move through it, right? You'll work through it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so will you listeners, if you're going through this too, you will work through it.
Yes. It may take time, and it is definitely, I think it's so important to stress, it is not a linear journey. It is not like one day you're in diet culture behavior and then the next day, or, you know, however long, then all of a sudden you're cured. I feel like it's going to be like a lifelong struggle.
It is, yeah.
To some degree.
I think you're going to, like, I think we improve all the time, but I think it's okay to have setbacks while we're improving. You know what I mean? Like, or when I say improving, while we're going through the journey, while we're achieving that body acceptance, it's okay to have setbacks because that's going to be normal, right?
Yeah. But like normal. To this severity, I honestly thought this was behind me. Really? So I think it's really, for this long, and for me to have had thoughts in the past where I just laugh at them and move on, I feel like it's, being in it for 4 days now, it's huge. And I just, you know, I wasn't going to share this story on the podcast, but I'm really glad I did because I know someone else is going to go through the same thing. And I really hope that this helps you, if you're going through it too, to know that, like, it can happen no matter where you're at in your journey, and just, you know, reminding yourself that you're on the right path and reminding yourself that it's okay. And like, literally yesterday I couldn't find anything to make me happy, so I watched a Christmas movie and took a bath. Like
but there you go, you eventually did hopefully feel better after that. Yeah. And it's okay, and that's a really good point, and no matter where you are in your journey, it's okay. And it sounds like you're doing everything you can, and that I think just as, you know, your brain kind of works through all this and your heart and all that, like, you know, you'll come out the other side, hopefully, right? So
absolutely,
I think, but yes.
So how's your week been in the body acceptance world?
Yeah, well, I hesitate to share this story too, but you've kind of inspired me to share it because you've shared your difficult story. So this past weekend was Thanksgiving weekend in Canada, and so we had a Thanksgiving. For those of you who don't know, we have our Thanksgiving's the same as the American Thanksgiving, only it's like 45 days in October. Earlier. Yeah. But literally it's the same thing, turkey and all that and stuffing and blah blah blah. So we had a dinner, and Aunt Marge came to the dinner.
Of course she did.
Yeah. And Aunt Marge made a comment that actually really triggered me, to the point where, and made me really angry, to the point where, like, I brought it up with my I had a therapy appointment yesterday. I brought it up with my therapist and worked through it that way. But Aunt Marge looked at my husband, who's also in a bigger body, or, you know, like, he's not, like, you know, stick thin, as people would say. And he goes, she goes, I'm really worried about you and your husband, because, you know, like, in your family, there's a history of XYZ medical conditions. And I just kind of sat there stunned. And it's that old rhetoric of diet culture that if you're in a bigger body, you must be unhealthy. And then Aunt Marge goes like, well, I don't know if you see the doctor regularly, but I hope you do. And where I kind of feel like part of me wanted to be like, Aunt Marge, this is none of your effing business. You know what I mean? But it was that what made me angry is I was angry not at her, but that diet culture teaches this, that body size equals health. Like if you're in a bigger body, then you must be unhealthy. If you're in a smaller body, then you're healthy. And I don't think, and I want to, with my story, remind everyone that that's not true. When we eventually get to our medical episode, I definitely want to touch on this more, but like, it's, so I, in a defensive way, it was like, well, my husband and I have had our blood work done recently, and we have immaculate blood work, meaning like we don't have anything, you know, off with the blood work. And like, and I kind of like, after I said that, I kind of wish I hadn't said that. I kind of wish I just ignored it, but I got really defensive, and it was almost like I was defending every bigger person who wasn't stick thin. You know what I mean? Like that's what I felt like I was doing. But really, like, I didn't need to share that information with her. That's private, personal information. And, like, it wasn't Aunt Marge's, you know what I mean? It wasn't, it wasn't Aunt Marge's business, right? So, what I wish I had kind of said was, like, you know, like, I almost wish she just hadn't has said any of that. But, like, it's like, I want to just be like, none of your business. So it was triggering. It was triggering because it brought in all this anger. Like, I don't know, it was like, I'm angry at Aunt Marge. I'm angry at the medical community I'm angry at, you know, just diet culture and society and the media. Like, it's like, I was just angry at everyone. And then talking about it in therapy, I realized Aunt Marge, while that question was inappropriate and invasive, it was, I believe, coming from a place, a decent, you know what I mean? A place. How do I say this? Like a decent place, like a place of concern potentially. So, so that was kind of, and like, I think also what made it jarring was it happened to them at the dinner table in front of everyone.
Oh,
not like
goodness.
Not like a private conversation, like,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so then I ended up sharing my medical history with the entire dinner table when maybe I didn't need to do that. So, because it's no one's business, right? So, so that's an example too of where when we talked about, well, what do we do when Aunt Marge says these things at these family functions, like our Thanksgiving episode, for example. I didn't do the thing that we talked about. I got really defensive and you know, so there's my setback personally, right? Like, but this goes to show you that we are only human, the two of us, and we're going through this just like everyone else. And I think it's important to talk about it because I want to make sure that people can relate to it too. So now that I've spoken about it on this podcast and in therapy and stuff, I feel less angry. I feel
That's good.
Like I can take this experience, share it, and then it can become a teachable moment for people who don't understand. So
absolutely.
It's a really good, really, really good teachable moment. Like a really good, like this is what not to say. At family functions.
And I think the biggest problem is that there's so much fat phobia in our culture. Yeah. And whenever anyone brings up body size, their argument is always that they're coming from a place of love and concern. But the problem is with the fat phobia and the misinformation out there about body size does not equal health. They're actually not coming from a place of concern. It's coming from a place
of sort of
fat phobia.
Yeah, of judgment. Of judgment. And it definitely did feel like I was being judged, right? Especially since earlier on in the meal, this podcast was a topic of conversation. So like, Aunt Marge already knew my position on everything, right? So it was just quite interesting. But I liked that I'm able to, share that with all of you. And, I talked about what I would do differently maybe if that happened again. But again, like when you're in the heat of the moment and you're like, that like cartoon when the cartoon characters, their face gets all red and their ears start to have steam coming out. That's literally how I felt. So sometimes when that happens, we're just going to react how we react. Right. So,
yeah.
So I didn't say anything inappropriate. I just maybe overshared a little bit too much in order to justify, you know what I mean, myself and my beliefs. But I know now I don't really need to do that. So yeah.
It's hard to remember that in the moment, though.
Yes, it really is. It really,
especially
really is.
When you're triggered.
Yeah, it really is. Yep, and your emotions take over kind of a little bit, or not even kind of a little bit. They take over a lot.
Yeah. So. And I think what you did was great, like having compassion for yourself, be like, well, like I handled it as best I could in the moment. Like, yeah,
it's all I could have done. So, and we'll see. Maybe if that ever happens again, I'll have the opportunity to handle it differently. But
maybe if that ever happens again, I'll throw the gravy at Aunt Marge.
Yeah, there you go.
We never know how we're going to react.
I think I should deserve props for not throwing the gravy at Aunt Marge in that moment, because that's how angry I was.
Absolutely. Good job.
Yes. Or I didn't turn it back on Aunt Marge. I could have done that. I didn't, right? So
yeah, that's true.
I did not go there at all because I don't believe in that. But
it's not a real Thanksgiving dinner until someone's wearing the gravy.
Yep, and Thanksgiving dinner, it's when there's all kinds. All kinds.
Oh, man, that makes me feel great to think about throwing gravy at somebody.
Yes. Actually, I do feel kind of joy right now talking about it. Because I did have this image of me going and throwing it. Oh my goodness. Well, we should get going and talking about negative self-talk.
With that.
Yeah. Yes, with that comes, yes.
Negative self-talk is... In our tradition of like defining it, we don't have an actual definition here.
No.
But we're talking about it in terms of any negative talk that you say about yourself. And that can be the diet voice in your brain and calling yourself stupid, calling yourself names, calling yourself anything, anything that comes at yourself.
Yeah. Like a big thing I do. So I was trying to think of examples from my personal life. Is when I'm very clumsy. It comes with the territory of having ADHD. Your spatial awareness isn't the way a non-neurodivergent person is, and you tend to do things like drop things, trip, fall, like stuff like that. So and I notice when I drop things. So for example, or I brushed against a table because I wasn't spatially aware of how close it was to me. It knocked over a plant, which spilled dirt on the floor. And then I said to myself, oh, Morgan, you're such an idiot. Like, and it's like, that is a prime example of negative self-talk.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even make sense because I didn't mean to knock over the plant. You know what I mean? It wasn't intentional. So, it was just like, you're such an idiot. And then I had to go and sweep it up and you know what I mean? So.
Yeah. I had a similar situation where I was mopping the floor and I needed to dump out the bucket water in the sink in the kitchen, and I had just mopped the kitchen and I walked right through the floor and I had shoes on. So not only did I just clean the floor, but then I walked over it with dirty shoes, and I didn't realize what I had done until I was walking out of the kitchen and my foot slipped a little. And then I was like, oh, stupid, 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 as I was walking out of the wet and then remopping where I had walked. And then I realized, wait a minute, why am I saying that? I obviously was not even thinking. I just was like, water needs to go in sink. Sink is over there. Walk to sink.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. You weren't, it wasn't in your awareness that you had just on the floor. Yeah, at all. Yeah. I mean, another example I have too, with which I'll use Aunt Marge again for this one. Aunt Marge was talking about how she has security cameras in her house, and she was saying how she stepped outside in her pajamas, which were kind of skimpy, and that she noticed the next day when she was looking at the security film, she said to us about herself, wow, and there was this big fat pig on camera, and she was saying it about herself. And I made a comment. I was like, hey, don't talk about my Aunt Marge like that. And Aunt Marge goes, well, no, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about myself. And I'm like, that's the point. Like, why are you putting yourself down like that? Yeah. So, and it's kind of like, that's a diet example, a diet voice example, obviously, right? So, or diet culture example, but that's kind of like it. So those kind of 3 examples are what we're talking about with the negative voice, and it can be super sneaky. It can sneak all up in there so fast. But
I feel like it can be something as casual too as like, you're so brave for doing that, I could never. Yeah. And it's like it puts yourself down, like thinking that you can't do something.
Or even not even something you say. Like, I've had thoughts, like, I've spilled something and gone, like, shit. And then had a thought, like I sighed in this, like, with a sigh. That's like, I'm so stupid. But I don't actually say it or even think it necessarily in my head. But that sigh is recognition of my stupidity, right? Like, so, like, it can even be actions or behaviors, too, right? Yeah. It creeps right in there.
Yeah.
So,
I think those are such great examples, and I feel like it's something that's ingrained in the media as well. Like, you see people doing it on TV and movies, so it becomes second nature to do it. I almost feel like it's also a defense mechanism in a sense, because you don't want to be called that name, so you call yourself that name first. Like Fat Amy in Pitch Perfect. It's like, oh, well, I call myself this so that Twiggy Bitch is like, you don't do it. I think that's how she says it. Anyway,
yeah, like, so that you don't do it first. Like,
yeah, or you don't do it behind my back. And it's just like, well, yeah, but like, should we really be referring to ourselves as stupid or idiot or, you know what I mean? Yeah. Just so that it takes away other people's power? Like...
Or fat in a derogatory term. Like, I know there are certain popular people who also have podcasts and stuff that I know that have reclaimed the word fat and try to have made it into a non-derogatory term. I find that personally, to be completely honest, like I'm very much you do you. If you want to reclaim fat the way other cultures have reclaimed derogatory words, then go for it, in my opinion, or other situations or whatnot. But like, in my opinion, I don't like that word, fat. I don't, I have I still have a negative connotation when I think about it. It's not something, that I call myself, like, regularly.
I also, for that word specifically, I feel like every body has fat on it.
Yes.
Like, fat is something that exists in your body, just like muscle exists in your body, just like bones exist in your body. Calling someone fat, I agree with you, is not like, I don't think there's any need personally to reclaim that word, because I think it's just being misused. Yeah. I think fat is just factual the way bones are factual, and it's a part of our makeup. And I feel like, and it's the same. Another thing is like overweight. Over what weight? Like, it's just like,
over the way that I don't like that one either. You to be like,
yeah, but it's like, and that's the thing. It's like, well, who's deciding what weight is acceptable for your body?
That's a really good point. Those are really good points. Yeah.
So like, those also, I feel, are negative self-talk. Oh, I'm overweight. Over what weight? Like, what weight? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just,
I agree with that. Like, I agree with that 100%. And that's a really, like, you always have such amazing, like, ways to, like, twist things to look at them in a way that's, like, because you're right. Fat is just an actual, like, scientific part of who we are, biological part of us. And and weight is just our relationship with gravity.
Yes.
It's just we were way different. Yeah.
Different on different planets.
Yes.
FYI. So if we do colonize Mars, your weight will mean nothing over there.
Yeah. True. It's true though.
So just saying.
Yeah, it's true though. It's not. It's your relationship with gravity. It's and how much gravitational force is pulling you to the Earth. Like that's literally what it is.
Yeah.
So and so and that's actually, that would be a good point to say to doctors if you didn't want to weigh yourself. You'd be like, why do you need to know my gravitational pull to the Earth?
Yeah, right?
But, well, that's for another episode, but still. But no, I definitely agree that would, so for me, those words are very powerful. And it's the meaning behind them that gives them power. If you're reclaiming the word fat and you feel empowered and joy when you hear that word, then by all means use it in that way. But
absolutely.
But that word does not, I'm not at a place in my journey where that word makes me feel joy and empowerment. So I tend to see it more negatively. So that's the meaning it holds for me. So I won't use that word as a description of myself or anyone else. And same with overweight as well. I've always hated the term overweight, and I think you've just explained why I hate it.
Yeah. It's like, it's so ridiculous because it's technically, I bet you, overweight comes from the body mass index. Like it comes from the BMI, and they're saying you should be within this weight. Yeah. They're literally saying you should be in this box. And if you are not in this box, you are either over or under our box. And like and then it's literally a defining term that means nothing anymore. And I feel like if people if like exactly what you said, if people want to reclaim it and feel empowered, go for it. I personally feel like I am a human being and you are a human being, and that's all that should matter. Yeah. Like what we look like, regardless of our gravitational mass, should never be a factor. The same way, it's like, who cares what color my hair is? Who cares? It's the same. Who cares if I have like short nails or long nails? Who cares? Who cares if I don't have 10 fingers and 10 toes? Like, I'm still a human being. Like, all these other factors shouldn't matter. And it's society that has put these defining factors on us. And if you want to reclaim it because that's your journey, totally. Yeah. I just personally feel like we're all the same and we should all be treated the same regardless of anything.
That's a really good point. And actually, the BMI came up in my therapy appointment yesterday when I was discussing what Aunt Marge had said. And my therapist reminded me that professional football players, professional boxers, any athlete who has, basically who wouldn't be considered, I would say, stick thin, would have an overweight or obese BMI. And she reminded me that that's why the BMI is not accurate, because it doesn't take into account muscle, tone, and all of that. So that's bone density, culture, like what culture you're from and how your body naturally is, just being a part of that ethnicity, like all of that. It doesn't. Yeah. So my therapist reminded me of that. So when you brought up overweight and being in the box, it instantly made me want to repeat what she said, because I think it's really important for people to know. And we'll talk a lot more about it during the medical episode. But that's something that I really want to remind people. Like, if you're still going off the BMI, I advise you to think about that, because and think and question how accurate that is. Unfortunately, the medical model is still using it, but I see a change happening that it will eventually be thrown out, because it's not an accurate representation of it's almost like, again, they're trying to take someone's weight and determine how healthy you are based on the weight, and that's never going to be a thing. So it can never be, it's never a factor, right? So like, you can be like, I have another family member who is always been very, very thin, and she has high cholesterol. So like, it's like, that's, like,
it can come
come in. So I would like to you know, and there is, we'll talk about the difference between correlation and causation. But anyway, we kind of got off topic, but I just wanted to bring that up about that my therapist reminded me that, because I think it was something that just creeped into my brain, and I'm like, oh, our listeners need to be reminded of this in this moment, because this is what, you know, if you think that, you know, if you think that calling yourself overweight is going to be helpful for you, then think about where that's coming from, and think about what my therapist said about how the BMI isn't accurate. So
yeah, and I think that's an example of negative self-talk when it comes to the diet voice or putting yourself down, because like I had a situation on the weekend where I put pants on and they were tight, and I was like, dude, I bought these 3 months ago. Oh my gosh, I'm so fat. But like the oh my gosh, I'm so fat is where it went wrong, because it's like I have fat. I am not fat. I think it's just one of those like misuse of words where people have decided that that's what they're going to call people. And it's another, like, I don't know, it's anyway. But if you find yourself calling yourself that, absolutely figure out where it's coming from. Get curious. And if you find, what I do when I find myself saying those things, I say, I'm not that thing. And then I show myself some compassion to try and like counter it, because there's nothing you can do. It's already been said, whether it's said verbally or mentally. And all you can do is show yourself love and compassion and try and not do it again.
Or even just, like sometimes it's so funny, like sometimes my negative self-talk is like, oh shit, you know, I'm an idiot for knocking over this plant. And then it's like, oh, I'm an idiot for calling myself an idiot. You know what I mean? Like, and then so I try to change that around with telling myself I love you. Just be like, huh, like, okay, Morgan, I love you. And then like basically being like, I love myself, right? Showing yourself
That's such a good one.
So so one of the things I do to try to counter, every time I say something negative, I counter it with a positive, loving thought, or loving, even just a quick, I love you, like loving words. Because I do believe it shifts the energy when you say loving things versus self-negative things, right? So, and it might not, you might have to be saying I love you 1,000 times that day because you're just having a bad day, but like, trust me, you'll come out of it, I think, in a better place, right, than if you didn't. So something I find too that really helps shift the energy for me as well is forgiving myself. I forgive myself for feeling low. I forgive myself for having these thoughts. I forgive myself for my moment of weakness. I forgive myself for my past, for the societal situations I've been in, for anything that I may have done or said. Just that act of forgiveness, it really like liberates you. It's like the act of letting go almost for me. I get what you're saying. That's actually a really, really good one. That's an amazing tool. And we don't have to, like, there's a lot of people who, you know, forgiveness, who are like, I want to forgive my abuser, I want to forgive whatever. But when we're talking about ourselves, we're talking about essentially just letting it go so we don't dwell on it, right? Like, like that's kind of like what it is. It's like letting it go, because dwelling on it is more harmful to us mentally, right? So I really like that one. I love that. I might use that one too. Yeah, because if you're dwelling on it, that can cause you to spiral. That can cause you to go into a deeper place than you need to be. And when I was at the beginning of my body acceptance journey, I was often spiraling, much as I feel like I've been for the last 4 days. I was often spiraling, and something my coach said was, it's okay if you're spiraling. And as soon as you recognize that you're in the spiral, that's when you can show yourself love, show yourself forgiveness, because it's okay if you don't catch it right away. But whenever you do catch it, that's the appropriate time to, and don't be hard on yourself. I was so hard on myself. Oh, I know this. I shouldn't have spiraled. And then even that, I shouldn't have blah, blah, blah. That is negative self-talk, I feel. Because you're being so hard on yourself when you should just be showing yourself love and compassion, because you're doing the best you can. Like,
everyone is just, I truly believe everyone is just doing the best that they can with the tools that they have, with the life that they've lived. And it's okay if it takes you time, if you don't catch it right away, and don't be hard on yourself, because that's negative self-talk.
Yes. No, that is negative self-talk though. It is.
Yeah.
Like, I should have done this. I also hate the word should. What is it? What does that even mean? You know what I mean? Like, in general, we should do this when we should do that. Says who? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like we're doing what we're doing. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's that. So, you know,
Yeah.
I kind of take that out of the vocabulary too. So
Yeah. That's a hard one too, because it's so ingrained in society.
Yep.
And I feel like the shoulds are the boxes that everyone wants to put you in. Yes. Oh, but you should do it like this. Oh, but maybe just because you do it like that doesn't mean I have to do it like this. And like opening up our mind and like being curious about other ways of doing things really helps release the shoulds. Yeah.
Yep. And I would also say, I don't know if this isn't negative self-talk, but this is negative talk. This just popped into my head, so I feel like my intuition wants me to share this. I have people in my life who will look at the state of the world and will constantly talk about the negative aspects of it, like over and over and over, and related to their life. Like for example, instead of trying to find innovative solutions. So I'm going to use you as an example for one thing.
Sure.
Like, I have friends that are like, that are like, oh, I can't, I want to buy a house, but I can't, right? I can't do it. The market is just too high, blah, 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 blah. Whereas you have found a way to do that, right? Like, you thought outside of the box and you moved to a place where you could do that, right?
Yeah.
And I also have friends who are moving to other places too, right? We have mutual friends who are
that's true
right now. But it's not like I'm not saying that like the struggle isn't valid and the pain that it's causing you isn't valid. But I'm kind of saying repeating it over and over again, is that actually going to serve you? You know what I mean? Like, it gives the illusion that you're stuck, right? When and maybe you are stuck now, but maybe things will change in the future. Because, like, I mean, I just threw the real estate market as an example because you are an example of it. But, like, even like the, right now there's an employee shortage, right? So it's like, I know someone who's a restaurant owner who's frustrated about that right now, and it's the one thing they talk about over and over and over, and you're just like, okay, like, you know what I mean? Like, like, it's like, I get that you're frustrated about this and your feelings are valid 100%, but just instead of, it's almost like it blocks you from moving forward, right? Like, repeating that like something over and over again. So while that's it's not self-talk necessarily, repeating negative talk over and over again does harm yourself to some extent. Yes. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I know, for some reason my intuition wanted me to share that. So like just repeating the negative things in the world over and over, right?
Well, and going back to something you said, feeling stuck is an illusion.
Yes.
It's an illusion because you may be stuck in the moment because you are in this box. Yeah. And you need to expand your thinking into different ways.
That's what I believe too. Yeah.
Yeah. There's always a solution. We live in such a beautiful, magical world where everything is possible. Literally, people are curing cancer with their mind. Like, if you don't believe me, DM me. There's so many resources out there. There's people who have had medical anomalies. Like, actually, Anita Moorjani, read her book, her first book. It talks about how the doctors were literally like, how we have no medical reasoning for how you were able to come back from where you were because you were terminal. And she's alive and touring and she speaks on stages. And my point is, things like that, which are not conceivable to the medical community, but they exist. So, like, just because you can't necessarily conceive of a solution doesn't mean it's not there. And like you said, perpetuating these negative thoughts, negative, and saying it out loud gives it so much, like, power in our brains. And so it keeps you stuck in this like field that you've actually created on your own. So I just wanted to like stress on that because it is possible. Whatever you think you're stuck in, it is possible to get out of. And that's what I feel like this negative self-talk about body acceptance will keep you stuck in this place of not loving yourself and not being able to accept yourself for who you are. And if you keep perpetuating it by saying, I'm so fat, I need to lose weight, I'm so fat, blah, 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 you're going to keep yourself stuck in this space where you don't love yourself.
Turn it back onto the body acceptance is like, exactly. It's like you allowing the negative self-talk to continue because it is choice. It might not be a choice in the moment when you say it because it might be involuntary, but just like any other behavior, you can change it if you want over time. But by allowing yourself the negative self-talk over and over again, you're allowing yourself to stay stuck instead of making space for you to expand. I guess that's a good way of putting it. So
I'm just going to say this, and it's going to be controversial. I'm sure some people might find this triggering. But if you are choosing the negative self-talk, you are choosing to not love yourself. Mm-hmm. By continuing this behavior, you are choosing to not love yourself. And literally, I have said this, you are the only person that you have woken up with every single day of your life. And
that's true.
If you don't love yourself, like you are the only one who's with you every single day of your life. Love has to start with you. It can't be external. And if you are perpetuating negative self-talk, it's not like you can't look external to get that. It's like the first step.
Yeah.
I feel.
And I think some people do say the negative self-talk because they want someone to say something back. They want someone to be like if they're like, oh, I'm so fat. They want someone to be like, no, you're not, because they are trying to get that love from an external source.
Yes.
And that love
validation.
And yes, exactly. Yeah. Like, whereas what we're trying to say is you need to give the validation to yourself. You need to, and that was one of the biggest lessons I've ever learned in my life is you can't love anyone else until you love yourself first. Until you learn to love yourself first. And it's a learned behavior. Yes. It's a learned behavior because society teaches us not to love ourselves. Because if they
want us to change.
They want us to change. They want us to buy their shit so that we feel valid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas if we just loved ourselves and didn't buy their shit, then no one would make any money. So
yeah, exactly.
I'm talking primarily about like the diet world and the fitness world and the health world, health and wellness and whatever. But like, if you love yourself unconditionally, you don't need any of their products to improve yourself.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Yeah. So that's one of the that's a big thing. So I agree with you. It is a choice. It's a choice. It's almost like what you said before. It's a choice when you become consciously aware of it. Like sometimes I do throw out the odd like, oh, Morgan, you're so stupid. And it's like when I become aware of it, then I can choose a different path, right?
Exactly.
So
it starts with becoming an observer.
Yes.
Starting to observe your thoughts and behaviors and like what are you doing?
Yeah. Yep. And that's a good, we talked about that before in a different episode, but I think that's a really good place to start too. So, and that's actually a really gentle place to start. If you want to change your negative self-talk, start with just paying attention to what your thoughts and your behaviors are and what you're saying out loud and saying to yourself internally. Just start by just observing. You don't have to do anything. You just observe it.
And one of the big things that I've sorry.
We keep interrupting each other. Go ahead first.
One of the big things I feel is like if you say something, like how would you react if your friend was saying that about themselves?
Yes, pretend that you're your best friend. You're
best.
Yeah, so, exactly. Or someone else was saying that about your best friend, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
That's good.
Like, don't talk about my best friend that way, or like or like, my best friend deserves love and respect and compassion just like anybody else. So
exactly. And eventually once you do enough as observing, you can then start to make changes. And you might just
Yes.
make them naturally too, right? So
Yes.
yeah.
That's one thing too. You might not realize how much is going on, and once you start observing, it might like shake you. Be like, "Oh damn. Like I didn't realize
I'm like
this
pretty
was going
burdened to
on."
myself, like, like,
Yeah.
okay, we need to make some changes here kind of thing. Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so
And I think it's important not to judge yourself if you do notice a lot going on.
yes.
It's okay. We've all been through it. We've been
And
conditioned to do it.
If you've never done this before, if you've never been in like if you've never had like been in a place where you do observe negative self-talk before, or like if you've never worked on it before, you're probably going to have a lot.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because we start where we are. So,
Yeah. Exactly.
and then we move from there. So
Yeah.
Exactly.
A negative self-talk is definitely an easy place to start if you're on a body acceptance journey.
Yes.
Because it's a way that you can learn your behaviors and learn how to change your behaviors, which will in turn result in accepting yourself for who you are.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's a really good, you're right. It's a really good, gentle place to start. And also, I also encourage you. So we've talked about, what do we do if we hear each other, we hear ourselves do it, but what about other people? Like like my story about Aunt Marge, in the security system, like what do we do when we hear other people put themselves down, right?
I love that
do?
phrase.
Yeah.
No, I use that phrase too. Don't say that about, like, my husband will do that sometimes, and I'll say, don't say that about my husband.
Yeah.
And then he'll be like, oh yeah, you're right. Like I'll say that to people too. I love that one.
Yeah.
I love it so much because they're like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. Don't talk about my best friend that way. Don't talk about my friend that way. Don't talk about my, my partner that way, like whatever you want to say. But I think it's actually good to bring it. I like if you observe it and you feel intuitively that it's a good idea to bring it up, then like you can bring it up like that, like we just said. And because maybe making that person aware will help them reduce it too. Right. So
it's hard too. It depends what they're saying. If someone were to say to me like, oh, it's so nice that you can wear that, I'm too fat to wear, I don't know, skinny jeans. Like and I don't know what I would say in that moment, because I feel like that would trigger me, and I would be like, fat is just something on your body, and then I would like go on this whole like rant, and I feel like that wouldn't be very helpful.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, like now hindsight's always 20/20, right? But like I feel like I would say like I don't view it like that, and then lead into what we both believe. But like it can be, but yeah, it's true. You just what are you, or do you just not say anything, or you just, you know what I mean, like, and recognize they're on a different journey, right?
Yeah, I think it would depend who it is.
Yes.
I have some friends that I would probably change the subject.
Yeah.
If specifically they were saying that they were fat, because I know that they're still in their box and they probably are not open to changing their views because they're so in the diet culture phase.
Yeah.
If it because we don't believe that diets are healthy, arguably if someone is like, I need to go on a diet, that's negative self-talk. And like, I don't know how I would react to that, because I would be like, no, please don't. Love yourself more.
Love yourself. Don't do it. Diets have a 95% failure rate. Don't do it.
Yeah. But it depends on the person. Because like we have friends who are so into their diets that like we wouldn't be able to talk to them about this at all, and having them say those things, it would probably be easier in those situations to just like say like, oh, and change the subject.
Usually I don't say anything at all, or I just say something like, for myself, I'm on this journey of body acceptance. I just relate it back to me and what I do for me. And I don't because I think it's you know what I mean? Like it's there's nothing wrong with sharing your views on yourself, right? Like
Yeah.
but yeah, like it's but I don't, but again, yeah, you're right. It's like I have a couple people in my mind that I think about when I have this,
Yeah.
when, well, as I'm saying this, but like, yeah, it's like you know, they can't see the forest through the trees, whether that stays like that or whether that continues or whether that eventually they do is but that's also not everyone's on their own journeys, and you know what I mean? So they're either gonna I also believe in fate. Like I'm like you're meant to see the forest through the trees and overcome diet culture, or you're not. Like like it's like if that's part of your life's journey or it's not. Like I don't know. So
that's another thing. Like sometimes I don't want to say something because they are on their own journey. Yeah. And I just want them to be able to experience things on their own. Yeah. So like if they're like, oh, I'm trying this new diet, I'd be like, oh, and then change the subject. Cause I really feel for me, like that just like the O acknowledges their journey they're on, and then changing the subject kind of lets them know that I'm not on that journey and not interested in discussing
about it. Yeah. And chances are, and I can say that this is true with a lot of people, chances are they're going to go on that diet, it's not going to work, and then they're going to, you know, come off of it again. Like I can tell you that, like, I am very, very hyper aware of my friends who are on that journey, and that and then they might, like, months will go by and they might try again, but then it doesn't work because diets don't work, and because they're not sustainable long term, and and it's true, and then so that doesn't work, so they like, and it's literally like, you know, you're kind of like, when are you going to come over to my side? But but at the same time you have to let them get there on their own authentically, or it's not going to be.
It's kind of like my house is open. My house over here with the body acceptance and body love is open for you for whenever you come. And it's like a non-verbal thing. Like I don't say that to them, but it totally is. And like I like love, honor, and respect them for wherever they're at in their journey. And if I hear someone talking negatively in that realm with the diet voice, that's how I handle that. If someone were to say, like, I'm stupid, that's where I would be like, no, you're not.
Yeah. Or even one step further, like, why are you saying that about yourself? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what made you think that thought, kind of thing, right? Like, because often those negative thoughts, as we kind of discussed, that it's society, like, where they don't come from us, they come from external sources, like past history growing up, or like societal things, or you know what I mean? So like it's like so it's like, where is that thought? Oh, that thought's actually your toxic aunt, like not yours. Okay, like, you know what I mean? Like
there's
your
another one
aunt used to tell you that, like, you know, like right? Like
there's another one where like my Aunt Marge will be like, well, you guys think I'm stupid. And it's like, nobody said that, Aunt Marge. Nobody believes that. And like, that's what I say. That's usually what I say in response. Like, when did I say that? I don't think that. Like, I don't believe that. That's not me, you know?
Yeah. That's Aunt Marge thinking she is.
Yes.
And almost like wanting validation for you to say that she's not, probably. But like, that's
another one.
Yeah, that's it.
Putting it on somebody else, putting that negative talk on somebody else.
That's like almost, it's like negative self-talk, but then like, like
projecting
projecting negative self-talk on, wow, that's interesting. Cause it is negative self-talk by, you know, bias. It's like assuming someone is thinking something negative about you. Yeah. And so in turn, you're thinking something negative about yourself.
Yeah. It almost makes me wonder, like, what they say to other people. Like, do they say bad things about me behind my back, and that's why they think I say these things about them? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, because, like, negative self-talk is almost like gossiping about yourself in front of yourself.
Yes. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. It is. And it's kind of like, we've talked about this in another episode, but in the Mean Girl scene where they're all judging parts of their bodies, and like that's an example of it too, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's a diet culture example or a societal example, but it's like you don't need to stand in front of the mirror and point out what you consider your flaws are. That's not loving yourself. So,
exactly. Where's that going to get you? Really think about it next time you do that, listeners. Like, it's not going to get you anywhere.
Yeah.
Being negative towards yourself in any way is not going to get you anywhere. It's going to keep you stuck. And like, becoming an observer, you're breaking down those walls, and like you're able to give yourself that love and compassion that you deserve, that is your birthright, and it starts with you. Like, break down those walls.
We are all put on this earth, whether you believe in a higher power or not, whether you believe, like, we're all put here. We are all forms of love, is what I believe. Yes. And we are all put here to be love and experience love. And and there's so much negativity in the world that, like, even just a little bit of positivity will squash some of the negativity. So,
and remember that you're a magnet, and like attracts like. So if you're always negative self-talking, you're going to attract more negative talk in your life. And if you're talking about yourself positively, you're going to attract more positive talk into your life.
That's a really, what you put out into the world comes back to you for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. Like tenfold.
I believe that too. I believe that too. I do.
Yeah.
So no, it's and I've experienced it, right? So for myself.
Yeah.
So
same.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. So I think this is a really good, this is a good topic.
Yes.
And
I love this one.
I love it too. And I think, we started out with kind of some intense stories at the beginning, and then we were able to get to a place now at the end of this episode where, we've worked through that, right? Like, not to say we're perfect and amazing, but like, we were able to show ways to work through different thoughts, right? And patterns and things. Like,
I actually feel like this came at a really good time, because I feel better now than I did when we started recording with my own like journey that I'm going through. So like, I can use these.
I always feel more empowered at the end of recording an episode. I always feel like I could go on a TED Talk about this. Like, I don't even know if it's called going on a TED Talk. Having a TED Talk? I don't know. But you know what I mean? Like, it's, I get, but yeah, I think that's amazing. I'm so glad that you feel better now than you did before we started. So that's awesome.
Yeah. But, I didn't expect it. Thanks, listeners.
Thank you. Yeah, well, it's because of you that we do this, and and we want you guys to, or I'm trying to get away from saying you guys, because it's non-gender conforming. So like, you know what I mean? For
y'all.
Thank you, y'all. I'm bringing back the Southern y'all. I'm Canadian.
I love y'all.
To that, but I love y'all. Yeah, me too.
There's so much y'all around here. There's a school that has their sign outside the school. It says it's fall, y'all, and I'm like, I love y'all.
It. I made that sign too. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah. So y'all will. I lost my train of thought. Y'all are the reason why we do this, because we feel like if we had this podcast when we were in our 20s, our lives would be a lot different now. So, and we'd be farther along, I guess, in our body acceptance journeys. But like, and this doesn't exist. So we are.
Now it does.
Now it does. Yes. So thank you. You are the reason why this exists. Yes. And why don't we talk? Well, do you want to mention our our milestones, because our podcast is new, but like how many listens did we get to this week?
We just surpassed 100 listens.
Yay! I wanted to talk about that, because like that sounds like nothing in the to some of the major podcasts out there, but if what we said helped at least one of those 100 people, like, I feel like that's why we do this. That's why we're doing this. So
absolutely.
It's not about quantity. It's about quality, and it's about it's about hopefully changing people's lives and perspectives on themselves. So.
Yeah, and creating a community to be able to support each other, because I know I felt like I didn't have people to support me when I was struggling with these journeys. So join us in our Facebook group.
Absolutely.
We can have discussions.
It's called the Body Acceptance Babes podcast discussion group. Definitely join it if you're into the Facebook. You can also DM us if you want to have any questions on Instagram. It's just Body Acceptance Babes, right?
At Body Acceptance Babes, yeah. And you can join us on Patreon for more one-on-one style Q&As and stuff.
Yeah, we're going to do more lives and stuff like that, and bonus episodes as well for Patreoners.
Yes.
So, yes.
Yay. All the goodies.
All right. So, I guess we will see you again next week.
Yep. Yay. See you in the next one.
Yeah.
Bye. Thanks for listening to today's episode. Comment on social media to let us know what you think. You can find us on TikTok and Instagram at Body Acceptance Babes. Please join our Patreon for bonus content, behind-the-scenes access, and more.
If you or someone you love is struggling with an eating disorder or disordered eating behavior, you can get help in Canada from the National Eating Disorder Information Centre toll-free at 1-866-633-4220 or email nedic@uhn.ca. Or in the U.S., you can text or call the National Eating Disorder Association toll-free at 1-800-931-2237.